You're listening to Inside Lebo, a podcast giving you an inside look at Mount Lebanon, Pennsylvania, produced by Mount Lebanon's Public Information Office.
Hello and welcome to Inside Lebo. I'm your host, Assistant Municipal Manager and Municipal Planner Ian McMeans.
And I'm Assistant Public Information Officer and Senior and Online Editor Rachel Windsor.
So since it's winter time and occasionally there's those little white things flurrying down in the air that we don't like to talk about too much, it's the perfect time to sit inside with a good book under a blanket and stay warm, or attend one of the many programs offered by the Mount Lebanon Public Library.
So today, our guests are the library's Associate Director of Public Services, Sharon Bruni, and librarian Eric Meisberger to discuss all the wonderful options. Welcome to you both. And why don't we kick off with you telling us what you're reading right now?
Okay, so in February, the library celebrates Black History Month, and during this month we have a lot of displays and book lists throughout the library, and I personally am reading a few books that are very good suggestions for people if they want to read a Black author this month. We recommend reading Black authors all throughout the year, but if you particularly want to read and celebrate Black History Month, these are the books that I'm personally reading. So I'm reading a memoir. The memoir is by Barbara Chase Lebo, and she's a living African American artist. She's an author. She's an award-winning poet. And she had an extraordinary life. And she wrote this memoir in a form of letters that she wrote to her mother. There are actually 600 letters that make up this entire memoir. She forgot about the letters, and then after her mother's death, she discovered them in a blue box in the closet in her mother's house. And that inspired her to kind of write her life story. After graduating as the first African American woman to attend Yale's School of Art and Architecture with an MFA, she received a Prix de Rome Prize, and she went and set off on a cruise ship to Europe in 1957 to be a fellow at the American Academy at Rome. And what's really interesting about this story is that it's full of charm and excitement of a young woman going out into the world and just discovering Europe and the art scene and the intellectuals that kind of circle around that scene. And I think that I want to read a little passage from the book because I think she captures this experience of what she wanted to do with this book the best in her introduction. So I'm just going to bear with me and read this little bit from the introduction. The stories begin with my mother embarking a teenage girl, me, on a French liner, La Flandre, bound for France. And it ends with the same mother leaving the daughter still standing, but alone. It is a book about perfection, about striving, about ambition and youth, about years when one's purpose in life was to learn everything you could learn, understand everything you could understand, do everything you can do, travel, read, study literature, art, and philosophy, absorbing it all in order to figure out who you are and who you might become, to try out smart alecness and arrogance, downright silliness and naivete, wild ambition and all kinds of delusions, to discover love and sex and all the terrific and terrible implications, including disappointment and betrayal, loss as well as power and glory, who you are in the eyes of mothers and who you are in the eyes of a loved one in your own eyes. All this while standing on a ledge, overhanging an abyss, trying to find out in your own eyes your own pride and identity in a careless and indifferent world, obedient to your upbringing and confident that you will see it through. Always, at least in my case, experiencing the best, not the worst. So it's a fantastic story. And in her travels with her first husband, the photographer Mark Rimbaud, she just travels at the most incredible time period of history. She goes through socialist China, Mao's China. She experiences the Pan-African Festival in Algiers, where she meets the founders of the Black Panther movement, Huey Newton, Eldridge and Kathleen Cleaver, and parties in Spain, where she dances with James Baldwin, and she goes into the house of Salvador Dali. She walks through the streets of Antibes in France with Picasso, and through Paris with Jackie Onassis. So she just has an incredible life. Her sculptures have been in world-renowned museums and shows in the Metropolitan in New York, in MoMA, in the Pompidou Center in Paris. And she did a very fantastically well-regarded series in the 1970s on Malcolm X of bronzes. So yeah, it's a fantastically told story in her own words, so highly recommended.
That sounds fascinating.
Yeah, there's a lot of history there, right?
Yeah.
Well, I've been getting into this writer, and we're probably going to get back to her a little bit later on in the podcast, but a very prolific writer named Abby Van Diver. And she also writes under the pen names Abby Collette and Cade Bentley. And I came to her through Cozy Mysteries, because Sharon and I are 2/3 of the Shelf Motivated podcast that the library does. And careful podcast listeners of Shelf Motivated will know that I'm the cozy mystery guy. I love the cozy mysteries. And she wrote a series called the Books and Biscuits Mysteries. And I'm really been getting into her other series as well. She's got the Ice Cream Parlor Mysteries, the Logan Dickerson series, the Romaine Wilder series. She's got 2 or 3 other mystery series, which is so prolific. And then beyond that, she's got not series books, but a standalone novel that she wrote as using the pen name Cade Bentley, called Where Wild Peaches Grow, which I'm very interested to get into. It's sort of a novel about sisters and sort of growing up, and it's not really a YA book. It's more of a not even so much a coming of age book, but it's just really about family interactions and generational interactions and trying to figure all that out, which I find fascinating from someone who writes what we consider quote-unquote genre fiction. Like, oh, she writes these mystery novels. Here she's also writing novels and, literary fiction. So I'm very interested in that. So that's what I've been getting into lately.
Cool. So you mentioned some of the things that the library has going on this month and some of the books you're currently reading. So what else is happening at the library?
So we have our winter reading program going on right now, and the winter reading program is for all ages. If you go to our library's website, which is mountlebannonlibrary.org, you'll notice that we'll have a spotlight for a winter reading program, and if you click on it, it will take you to different tabs for each of the age groups. Each of the programs are being run a little bit differently. The children's program is organized so that families come into the library and interact with the librarians, and so they have to actually come in to get the game board that they need to play and participate in the winter reading program. And the teen program is run on a bingo card kind of game strategy. And again, I believe that they need to come into the library, but there might be a PDF of one on the website, I think, for them to print out.
And for the grown-ups, we decided to make it simple, especially if you've got some teens and some kids and you're running around the library and you've got bingo cards and you got game boards and everything else. If you're a grown-up and you want to do winter reading, log on to the library, check out mountlebannonlibrary.org, go to that adult tab, and you can log all of your winter reading online. So it's all done through the online portal. Very simple, very easy to follow, very easy to do.
Cool.
And I wanted to mention a special program that the children's librarians are putting on this Sunday. They have started a whole series of programs called Sunday Fun Days, and they are kind of family-directed programs. So the children's librarians curate the programs, and they base them on a particular theme, and everything is available with lots of wayfinding in the library for families to come in and kind of just work through the program from 1:30 to 4, and then it's just a nice way to bond with the library and do something together. And this particular Sunday on February 4th, in celebration for Black History Month, the librarians are they have a really special self-directed program based upon a Caldecott honor book called There Was a Party for Langston, King of Letters by Jason Reynolds, illustrated by Jerome Pumphrey and Jarrett Pumphrey.
And I know that this is a podcast, so you can't see this, but this book looks so cool. I wish you could all see the cover of this book. It's this beautiful blue cover with a sort of kid kind of sitting on a crown. It's striking and it's beautiful, and it's the kind of thing that a kid or an adult would just be drawn to and want to open up and see what's inside.
Well, it's kind of a very interesting story how Jason Reynolds decided to write this book, because he's known to be kind of a middle grade or young adult writer, and he's award-winning in those categories. So this is his first picture book. And where he came to this is he had seen a photograph, and I don't know if he saw it in the archives, but he saw this photograph from the Schomburg Center, which is the New York Public Library's Center for African American Studies, or Black Studies throughout the globe, I should say. And there was a picture of Maya Angelou and Marie Baraka dancing together at this party in celebration of the inauguration of the Langston Hughes Auditorium. And Langston Hughes's ashes are actually buried under the floor of this auditorium. And so he was really struck by kind of this wonderful sense of joy of these two incredible poets that he admired dancing on the ashes of the father of their inspiration, and that it was in a library, and that they were having a party amongst other books of other authors that build up this foundation of the story. So his words are very poetic and musical throughout. And he also leaves a lot of space for illustration. And the illustrators, the Pumphrey brothers, are incredible. All the illustrations are hand-stamped. And so there's just like beautiful colors that kind of just wrap around the words of the story. And again, if I have a minute, I'll quickly just read you a short passage just to give you a taste of it.
Sure.
So Langston was the best word maker around. Could make the word mother feel like real warm arms wrapped around you, giving a snug hug. Could make the word America look like two friends making pinky promises to be cool, to be true. Could make the word Harlem sound like the perfect place to have a party, make it seem like you could bust a move right here in the H or the L or the M of it. And the illustration is an evening cityscape of Harlem. It's the brownstones and the apartment buildings, and they're lit up from the inside. And throughout, you see the tenants or the residents dancing in different postures, and the lights spell out the H, the A, the R, the L, E, and the M, where new dances are born. And it's just such a beautiful musical story that I think all ages, both adults and children, could enjoy. So the program celebrates words for children discovering the beauty of poetry, constructing words themselves, and reading the story and appreciating it together.
And one of the other things that the library offers, if people aren't kind of sure where to start, is you have suggested reading lists as well for people.
Absolutely, yeah. We spend a lot of time. The children's librarians have incredible amount of reading lists for all ages, all areas of interest. And I think on the adult side, especially during our seasonal reads, we try to do a good amount of reading lists, a good amount of displays, and we change them up regularly throughout the season. So I think it's definitely worth a trip in.
But you know what's great about the library?
Other than everything.
What's great about the library is, if you need a place to start, you can use those curated book lists. Those help out immensely. If you want to do your own thing completely, we're there for you. You can jump into the adult winter reading, I should say, or the summer reading when we do it, and read what you want to read. And that's your summer reading, your winter reading, your experience. We're there for you to give you some help, to point you in a direction if you ask. But we've got a lot of books at our disposal, a lot of electronic resources at our disposal, a lot of ways to get you the stuff that you want to read. Doesn't have to be on our lists.
Although we'd like to help you find something now.
We do love to help you find it, though. That's true.
And Eric, you have a program also coming up for Black History Month.
I do. Talking about Abby Van Diver on Thursday, February 29th at 7 p.m. that writer that I spoke about earlier, who writes under the names Abby Collette and Cade Bentley, Abby Van Diver. She's going to be joining us at the library for a discussion of her craft, her writing, her different series, how she has written her newest novel. So we're really excited to welcome her, and that's going to be at the end of February, Thursday, February 29th at 7 p.m.
Leap Day.
Leap Day, yes. An auspicious day for many reasons. Absolutely.
And if I can make a shameless plug as a frequent user of the library services, if people haven't downloaded the Mount Lebanon Library app, it is extremely useful because I can't think of how many times someone's been like, hey, you should read this book. And I'll just pull out my phone and either go into Goodreads and be like, I want to read this later, or just go on the library app and find it. And if the Mount Lebanon Library doesn't have it, the app has access to the whole Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh system. So it might be like, oh, the Brentwood Library has it, and I can hit request, and then it'll be on the hold shelf in a few days for me to go pick up. And now that you have the outdoor holds lockers, which are awesome, people can come at any time of day and pick up their holds outdoors. So for people out there who may work during many of the hours when the library is open and may find it difficult to find time to go there, the outdoor hold shelves are a really nice resource that the library has added to make books and materials more accessible for people around the community.
Oh, thank you. And that's a nice plug.
So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will learn more about what's going on at the library this month. And we are back. This is Rachel Windsor, Assistant Public Information Officer, and Ian McMeans. So we started to talk a little bit about reading lists. Could you tell us more about the Black History Month reading list that you have put together?
Sure. So it's a list that I think we were thinking, we often think like this, so it's not a new thought for us, but we really wanted to highlight the incredible range of types of books that are available by Black authors. And I know that many of you probably have seen the Academy Award-winning nominated film American Fiction. If you haven't, I highly recommend it. And it's a movie that's based on a book by Percival Everett, who wrote a book in 2001 called Erasure. And it's a book about how it can be constricting to be a popular Black author because the market drives you to write about a specific storyline. And that's a storyline that oftentimes embraces kind of like tragedy and poverty and sometimes criminality and addiction, and that's such a narrow line. It's like a one flat story, and sometimes it can become even comical because of how it's forced upon the writers of popular books. And so Percival Everett, who's a great author, I highly recommend any of his books. I specifically recommend Trees. I really love that book. I predict a series coming out in the near future. But he has a great sense of satirical humor. And he has a character, Thelonious Monk, who is this very well-acclaimed author, literary author, actually has an interest in the classics. And his works did get acclaim, but he wasn't really selling. And so he comes across this female best-selling author who only visited Harlem like a very short time for relatives, and she wrote this very kind of formulaic book about like the Black urban experience, and it's a bestseller. She gets a movie deal. So he gets so angry that he writes this kind of like an intentional book to like comment on that, and oddly it gets published and it becomes a success, and it makes him very angry. And so with that in mind, kind of thinking of like, how do we, as consumers of books, how do we make certain that the market isn't so constricted? How do we make sure that authors of varied talents and expressions have a chance to get their books published and read? And as a library, we have some ability to do so by making sure that we publish independent presses and smaller presses and books that express a wide range of emotion and content. And so that book list that we're hoping to put out with a display in fiction and nonfiction for adults is definitely going to show this range of genres. Like there'll be mysteries and cozy mystery authors, there'll be romance authors and authors that write about nature and cooking and all different wide range of subjects. So that's sort of what the book list will look like.
Yeah, and it's that idea that too, one of the things that we love at the library and that we love about what we do is being able to increase the width and the depth of reading about what you already love. And that's been something that I have really come to over the last few years in a way that I hadn't really before. I found my reading being a little bit more adventurous and being a little bit more maybe outside of the range that I would have just normally gone to. And I feel like we have some really great opportunities to offer that to the community here. So, maybe you love books by like, Colleen Hoover or Danielle Steele. You're a real romance person. Try a book by Jasmine Guillory or Talia Hibbert or Etta Easton, right? This is, Penguin is publishing a ton of amazing, Black romance novelists right now, and that's something that you can look into. Maybe you love sci-fi. Try somebody like N.K. Jemisin or, more classic writers like Samuel Delany or Octavia Butler, places that you can go to get the kinds of books that you love, but you're still broadening that experience and you're going a little deeper and getting the same kind of fiction that you love, but maybe getting it from a different place. And that's an eye-opening experience, and it makes reading fun, and it makes it an experience, and it makes it a discovery again.
It's richer. It does expand. You get tired reading the same things over and over. And it's always that surprise of like a new storyline that really opens your eyes and makes you love reading more and more.
And it's not just the fiction. Of course, these things exist in fiction and genre fiction and literary fiction, the kind of stuff that Sharon was talking about. But take like American history. You can look at writers like Diana Rami Berry or Kaylee Gross or Nicole Hannah-Jones. They're all writing about American history in ways that maybe if you're a history buff, you hadn't read books quite like that before. And so these things are out there. They exist, and we can tap into them and really get a new way of looking at something that we already love. And that's super exciting because it can kind of reignite what you like, and that's fun.
Yeah, that is really cool, especially like you mentioned with the history stuff. I remember listening to a podcast one time, and it was a history show, and they basically started the podcast, their first episode, by saying the history you learned in school was probably British history from the very British perspective of everything the British did was always good. And then it was American history and getting that different perspective of let's tell the story in a different way or from a different point of view or things like that can just be fascinating and really eye-opening. And I think you're right, just kind of expand your horizons too. The one other cool thing I think that the library does, and I know obviously being librarians, you are very, very focused on books and getting people to read, which is a wonderful thing. But on your movie shelves, you also have kind of monthly staff picks of things that are recommended for if people may not have time to sit down and go through a whole novel. If they want something a little shorter and quicker, a 1.5 to 2 hour movie that the staff kind of recommends based on whatever theme is happening that month is another nice option. And the library also has a really cool board game shelf. As a huge board game nerd, I highly recommend going and checking out the board games the library has to offer.
That collection keeps growing, by the way.
It's wonderful.
People really do love it. So stop in and see the board games. We'll be happy to show them to you.
And there's actually a group that meets at the library on Tuesday evenings around 7 o'clock. And it's very open, so you can just come. I think they select the games that night. So if you want to get out of the house this winter and meet some new people, I highly recommend that. And our senior services librarian, our new librarian, Jane, has started some board games for seniors in the afternoon. So look out for those as well.
That's really cool. And then one other thing that is coming up soon is the Library Speaker Series. Last year we had a hugely successful event with Colson Whitehead. And do you want to tell us a little bit about this year's author?
Sure. This year we're hosting Michael Pollan. It's a little later this year than we normally have it. I believe it's May 1st. And we thought that we would try an author that was a little bit of a departure for us. We've never had an author that came in that spoke about the environment and nature and food writing. He has such a range. So we thought we would try something different, and we've gotten a good success so far in ticket sales. So people are interested in having him here, and we have a local author who is going to be the person that it's going to be an interesting format. It's going to be in conversation with Michael Pollan. And so Mary Lynn Pitts, who recently wrote a book about the Kaufman family and who was a reporter for the Post-Gazette and actually won a Pulitzer for her reporting on the Tree of Life shooting, she's going to be the interviewer or the person that is going to be in conversation with Michael Pollan. So we really expect it to be an intimate and interesting evening.
Yeah, tickets are available on our website. You can get them there. We are not selling them in person. We are selling them online. So be sure to visit the website to get tickets to the Speaker Series event this year.
And that is MountLebanonLibrary.org.
Correct.
All right. Great. Well, I think that's about all we have time for today. So thanks, everyone, for tuning in.
That's it for this edition of Inside Lebo, produced by Carrie Monod, with music by Drew Monod and graphics by Chris Leeper.
And if you enjoyed our conversation today with our wonderful folks from the library, you can also check out their Shelf Motivated podcast as well. And we'll be back soon with another episode of Inside Lebo.
Thanks for listening to Inside Lebo, produced by Mount Lebanon's Public Information Office. Learn more about all things Lebo at mountlebanon.org or by following our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages.